we're going to be doing something very exciting at CoMotion Global. And we, for the first time next year, Smarter Mobility Africa has been opened up to different cities across Africa. It's been hosted in either the city of Tshwane or Johannesburg for the last 6 years. It will be in the city of Johannesburg this year. And we've now opened it up so that different cities can bid to host Smarter Mobility Africa next year. And we've had lots of interest.
We founded CoMotion 8 or 9 years ago in Los Angeles, the world's largest car city, to bring together a lot of the key innovators driving change on the private sector side with counterparts in the public sector.
We will be sharing who will be hosting Smarter Mobility Africa during CoMotion Global in Riyadh on the 7th to 9th.
We're aiming for 100 global mayors to be present at CoMotion Global in December. So there'll be a very good gathering of city leaders alongside, lots of startups and innovators. The Saudi Arabian government reached out to us to gauge our interest to see if we'd be interested to launch CoMotion in Riyadh. And we immediately jumped at this opportunity for several reasons. One is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region have been positioning themselves kind of geopolitically over the past few years as a bridge between East and West, and also between North and South.
Equally importantly is to build the business case, the economic case, the investment case. The CoMotion Global event is very timely this year, especially considering that South Africa is the host of G20.
Yes.
And just this weekend, actually, the city of Tshwane and the city of Johannesburg have hosted the U20. John Rossant from CoMotion, it's great to be here with you today, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion to learn about what you've been doing around the world, but more importantly, what you'll be doing closer to the region that I am focused on, which is Africa. Welcome, and where are you in the world today?
Thanks, Ben. It's great to be chatting with you. I'm actually today in New York City. Thank you for having me. And I just want to preface everything by saying how much we admire what you and your team have been creating these past few years with Smarter Mobility Africa. You absolutely have the finger on the pulse of innovation in the mobility space in Africa, in African cities in particular. CoMotion, we look at urban mobility and the disruption that's taking place across the landscape of urban mobility, and we see this playing out in African cities so much. And you really have, you really do a marvelous job. So I want to just first express my admiration for Smarter Mobility Africa as we start the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, John, so much. I really appreciate that. And it's been great to be connected with you since 2019. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were planning to join us in Dubai in 2020, but then the pandemic hit. So
exactly, yeah.
We've not met in person yet, but hopefully we will very soon at CoMotion Global, and we'll get onto that shortly. But equally, really a huge fan of what you and your team have been doing with CoMotion across the US and across the world. And I know you're involved in many different projects, not just CoMotion, bringing city leaders and mayors together and those key city stakeholders who are vital for advancing the development of cities and urban environments. And I was quite amazed, but also very happy to hear that you are a friend and connected with former Mayor Marvin Reeves from Bristol, which is my home city in England. So I think you certainly are
Lord
connected.
Reeves, yes.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah. Apologies, Lord Reeves, indeed.
Get that straight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Well, look, you're doing some really exciting things around the world. But we recently connected again, and you shared with me the very exciting plans and event that you'll be running in Riyadh with CoMotion Global. So perhaps actually before we jump to that, let's get some context for who CoMotion is and what you've been doing over the last few years.
Thanks. Yeah. So Ben, we founded CoMotion 8 or 9 years ago in Los Angeles, the world's largest car city, um, to bring together a lot of the key innovators driving change on the private sector side with counterparts in the public sector. We view that two things. One is that mobility, and we're talking about urban mobility essentially. We're not talking about transcontinental air flight, which is really interesting, but I think that's another sector. But it's really how cities, whether they're in Africa, Asia, North America, Europe, are going to be utterly transformed by the vast changes that are taking place in how goods and people move around. So it's electrification, it's autonomous mobility, it's new kinds of business models for electric delivery vehicles. It's advanced air mobility options. So, in the not too distant future, when you land, let's say, at Lagos Airport or in Nigeria, or JFK, let's say in New York, instead of being stuck in a 2 hour taxi ride to your hotel in the center city, you'll hop on an electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that will take you autonomously to your destination in, let's say, 12 minutes. That's going to happen. That's going to transform a lot of things in cities and urban areas. So we're looking at these vast changes, and we think that because mobility takes place in the public right of way, almost always, and will always be a highly regulated industry, it's imperative to bring together public and private. So, our mission, in a way, is to help the public sector understand these vast changes in technology and business models that are beginning to wash over cities everywhere. And so, if you look at at CoMotion Los Angeles or CoMotion Miami, which are two big events in the United States, they're split. A couple thousand participants at each event. It's split almost 50-50 between public and private. And we sort of help facilitate that public-private conversation that we think is essential to build the industry. Um, so we started in LA. We expanded to Miami about 6 years ago. We bring in, startups, established companies, transit agencies from not only around North America, but around the world. About 40 countries participate. And a couple of years ago, the Saudi Arabian government reached out to us to gauge our interest, to see if we'd be interested to launch CoMotion in Riyadh. And we immediately jumped at this opportunity for several reasons. One is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region have been positioning themselves kind of geopolitically over the past few years as a bridge between East and West, and also between North and South. So, in terms of East and West, for example, um, the Chinese mobility companies, whether it's automotive or aerial, etc., are killing it, sort of from a technological point of view, from a market point of view. But there's almost like a Cold War, as you probably are aware, between the Americans and the Chinese, between the Europeans and the Chinese. And the big question is how, going forward, we'll integrate these Chinese technology, this Chinese market presence in the rest of the world. So Riyadh is one of the few places that's really neutral in this. They really like the Chinese, they like the Americans, they play with everybody. So we think that Riyadh will be probably one of the only places in the world where the Chinese mobility players can sit at the same table with their counterparts from Europe and the United States, and that's very important. We think it's not worth it to go to war over mobility; that we have to kind of make peace and find an accommodation. The other thing is getting back to the sort of north, south, east, west thing is very, very important. They take this very, very seriously. Um, they see themselves as a bridge between North and South. And so they look at Africa, which is right next door. The, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia faces the African continent across the Red Sea. It's a massive continent that is urbanizing at the quickest rate of any region in the world. And so about 3.5%. So they see that between now, let's say, and 2050, they're going to be close to 1 billion new urbanites in Africa who will need services, they will need mobility services, they'll need to get across town, they'll need to make sure that their goods go from point A to point B in a city. And this is happening at a time, as I said, of huge technological disruptions. So there are amazing opportunities now for investors and to really do some very, very interesting things. So they see the north-south dynamic as probably even more important than the east-west one, and they see themselves very much as at the fulcrum of this. That's why we're so excited to be doing this in Saudi Arabia, and we're really excited to have as big a contingent of African startups, companies, public sector figures coming to Riyadh to meet their counterparts from the rest of the world.
That's fantastic, John. And I think, the reason that we're in the space of events, I'm sure, is because bringing together those key stakeholders, exchanging knowledge, ideas, innovation, creating
Yeah,
partnerships, creating investment opportunities and flows of funding is really critical. And it seems like no better place to do that than Riyadh right now, due to the innovation, the development happening there. And as you said, the role that they're playing for North, South, East, and West. So we're really looking forward to working with CoMotion on that. And I think it's great that CoMotion is the the event that will be hosting it in Riyadh. The work you've done already, you've mentioned in Miami and LA. The book that I read many years back, Hop, Skip, Go, which amazing book, because it
thanks.
really helps to uncover the innovation, the opportunities, the problems that have been in mobility, but more importantly, the solutions. And I think one of the aspects I've really enjoyed most during my work in Africa over the last 7 years is to see so many startups, so many innovators who
It's
are,
incredible.
yeah, identifying problems on the ground, whether it's with delivery services, whether it's how women move around, whether it's integrating with public transport, and creating those solutions. So I think the more that we can bring that to the fore and have that constant interaction between countries, cities from around the world, the faster we'll probably see the progress needed.
Completely agree, and I think that's probably the core of what Smarter Mobility Africa and CoMotion are about, which is that people learn from each other, cities learn from each other, and the great thing about bringing people together this way is that it really makes knowledge adaptation much quicker, and change can happen much quicker, I think. So yeah, no, I mean, and plus I think I'm sure you have this at your gatherings in Africa, Ben, as we do in CoMotion. When you bring so many people together, things happen, business happens, connections are made, the sparks of future joint ventures are sort of created. So it's wonderfully dynamic, and it's great to see how this sort of you know uh, ignites the whole sector to move forward.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned a bit around the role that Saudi's playing to bring together East, West, North, and South. And it might be worth giving some more context actually for some of the innovation and activities and investments that are taking place in the kingdom around transport, because I think I wasn't really aware of some of the moves that Saudi Arabia was making until I met you, in terms of companies they've invested in, companies they've developed, certain policies or strategies. So it might be worth giving a bit of backdrop to that, even on the urban development side. I know you've been involved in different projects, but that could really help some of our audience understand why this gathering in December is really quite significant.
Yeah. So look, the kingdom is Saudi Arabia is has very, very rapidly urbanized. So Riyadh is now a city of almost 8 million people. It could go to, well over 10 million in the future years. Up until last year, it was probably one of the largest cities in the world without a metro system. So they addressed that by putting in, not overnight, but in one go, the world's largest, most sophisticated metro system, completely driverless, 86 stations. And it's truly, I think, one of the wonders of the age. And I think that delegates coming to CoMotion Global 7th to 9th of December in Riyadh will have a chance to kind of see this amazing new metro system. But they're also, for example, the Saudis plus the Emiratis, the other Gulf states, are really in the lead in thinking about uh, advanced air mobility that I think I mentioned earlier. This is going to happen on a massive scale in the world. So starting early next year, we're going to see the first commercial services of electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft over in the Emirates, but it's just next door to Saudi Arabia, of course. So it's what's so again exciting is that this is such an exceptional crucible or petri dish of uh, new technology meeting the ability to do things on a big scale and to do things quickly. So I think that's why the area, the Gulf, is so interesting. They've also been, the investment piece is very important. So they've been extraordinarily important investors in uh, innovation and technology around the world, and they see opportunities. So they're, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, is $1 trillion plus. They've been making mobility is a key strategic interest of theirs. They're very, very early investors, for example, in Uber, going back many, many years. And so they've done very well on that investment. They're represented on the board. It's the kind of thing they really, really like. But you also find, significant investments in startups around the world, including in African cities. And we see this really starting to accelerate very, very quickly.
And that's great to hear. We've been running the Mobility Investment Project Program for the last 6 years now, and it's been a key part of the event and the program we run each year. And it's bringing together um, projects of all shapes and sizes, actually, startups, SMEs, but also
Right.
government-sized projects. We had Freetown pitching their cable car project, which is about moving people with cable cars. We've seen the Gautrain group, which runs the metro, one of the train lines in the Gauteng province, present some of their projects for the future. Um, and these projects are, incredible projects, great growth potential, but they need to be matched with global and African capital.
Yeah.
So I think that will be great to see what's happening in Riyadh and what CoMotion pulls together. And I'm
Yeah.
sure much of our audience would like to benefit from that.
Ben, there's another aspect that I think is very interesting, and that's the financial aspect, because um, you have the need for a lot of municipalities around the world, and let's talk about Africa, to put in new mobility systems that are more sustainable, that are more technologically advanced. But, they cost a lot of money and they require, a lot of capital. And so one of the things that we are doing at CoMotion and that we launched last spring, actually in Miami, but as an ongoing effort is something called SUMIT, SUMIT, which is the Sustainable Urban Mobility Investment Task Force. And I co-chair it. The other co-chair is my good friend Mauricio Rodas, who's the former mayor of Quito, Ecuador. And so we have about 16 members of the task force. And one of the things that the task force is tasked with is to look at new kinds of public-private partnership models, new kinds of financial models that will be necessary to ensure that these big projects are financed in the future. And so this is a very, very relevant topic for African cities because sometimes the access to capital could be difficult. Risk profiles are different. So we're bringing in the kind of multilateral development banks, private financial players to look at new models that can help facilitate the financing of these projects in the future. So that group will be meeting, that meets at an ongoing basis. We'll have a physical in-person meeting in Riyadh during CoMotion Global. But we're very much hoping that, Africa is part of this. In fact, regarding the Summit Task Force, we are very, very honored that Nasifi Moya, the mayor of Tshwane, uh, I guess which includes Pretoria in South Africa, is a very active member of the task force. She's been terrific. So Africa is definitely represented on the Summit Task Force, and that's only natural.
And that's really important because it's amazing how much these projects cost from a capex perspective, but then also the operating cost. And I was amazed when I was at the UITP summit in Hamburg this year and
Yeah,
some other events they've run in Morocco in
yeah,
December last year, and to learn how much public transport needs to be subsidized. I think it's sort of 30, 40, 50% of the funding, if not more sometimes, is coming from the government purse, essentially. And so they do take large amounts of funding to
yeah,
have those, correct PPP set up, those
yeah.
uh, different partnerships set up are vital for developing transport of different modes going forward.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the whole idea of convening different and diverse groups because for example, Mauricio Rodas, the mayor of Quito, he put in a metro system in record time, but using some very sort of innovative models for financing. And so an African city can certainly learn from that experience. And that's the whole power of when you convene people across different geographies, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, the Gauteng province is, famous for their what they call the Gau train. It was built just in
Right.
time for the World Cup in 2010, and it's world class public transport infrastructure, and has been continuously delivering such a high service for the people in the province, but also visitors to the province. And then you have in Lagos the new metro lines that they've built and launched in the last year or two. So I've not had the pleasure of being on those yet, but some truly world class infrastructure being rolled out. I'm sure
Yes.
being funded with different mechanisms. Um, so some good case studies, some good projects to share, and then the Saudis. I met some of the team behind the metro projects in
Huh?
December last year, and they were looking surprisingly relaxed considering how fast they had built the different public transport, and it's just incredible to see what they've done there.
Yeah.
So lots of knowledge change, innovation that will be taking place. Well, look, we're going to be doing something very exciting at CoMotion Global, and um, we, for the first time next year, Smarter Mobility Africa has been opened up to different cities across Africa. It's been hosted in either city of Tshwane or Johannesburg for the last 6 years. It will be in the city
Right.
of Johannesburg this year, and we've now opened it up so that different cities can bid to host Smarter Mobility Africa next year. And we've had lots of interest. I can't
I'll
share
bet.
too much at this point in time, but we will be sharing who will be hosting Smarter Mobility Africa during CoMotion Global in Riyadh on the 7th to 9th. So
I know.
thanks so
Can't
much.
wait for that. Yeah.
Thanks for providing the platform. We think it's a great place to be announcing the 2026 plans for many of the reasons we've just discussed around, the fact that it will be a global event. It's east, west, north, and south that will be there. Um, it's neighboring many of the East African countries, and it's going to be home to lots of mayors and transport heads as well. So we're looking forward to announcing that there.
Yeah, and in fact, we're aiming for 100 global mayors to be present at CoMotion Global in December. So there'll be a very good gathering of city leaders, but alongside lots of startups and innovators and technologists and investors from the private sector.
It definitely fits very well for our vision, and we truly believe that Africa will benefit from having a strong African event that's known year in, year out, to bring key stakeholders together. But equally importantly, is to build the business case, the economic case, the investment case for global funders, African funders, but also those
Yes,
solution providers. And we're aware that if you're a mobility solution provider in New York, in Shanghai, in Paris, wherever you might be, you've got the whole world to look at in terms of where should we put our resources, where should we expand and scale. And Africa and many African cities, unfortunately, gets left at the back of the queue with many of the innovations and solutions that exist. That obviously creates lots of opportunities locally as well from local innovation. But I think it's really important that we're helping global funders, African businesses, and global businesses to understand what's happening in different cities across Africa, understand what the opportunities are, what the challenges are, and what the trends are, so that they can more easily scale their solutions to different parts of the world. And if you look at many different parts of the world, US is probably a good example where if you're looking to scale across the US, you probably go to CoMotion LA or CoMotion Miami. And Smarter Mobility Africa is really built to do that. And this next chapter that we're entering in to host it in different cities across Africa will do just that. And again, we think announcing the host city partner at CoMotion Global will help to give it that global platform and to engage many of the really important stakeholders from the regions that you focus on.
good. Really looking forward to that, and looking forward to having as many African mobility innovators present in Riyadh in December. I think that will, enormously enrich the conversations that we're going to have. So,
Absolutely.
no, thank you for this opportunity, and we're delighted to facilitate it.
Thank you. And we'll also be hosting with your team there an Africa's Leaders lunch or,
Absolutely.
or gathering, to ensure that we're sharing some of the key projects, innovations, trends that are taking place across a number of African cities. And we really look forward to that.
Great.
Brilliant. Well, we've reached a good part of what we wanted to discuss today. Is there anything else, John, that we should cover today around CoMotion or any of the activities that you'll be doing over the next few months?
No, but I think it's what is so exciting that I think this opens up a lot of possibilities. We've always CoMotion from the very beginning, from the start 9 years ago, has always had a kind of global perspective that we think that Los Angeles can't solve its own mobility problems without input from everywhere in the world. Same with Miami, same with Lagos, or other cities. So expanding, bringing African innovators, African leaders more centrally into these conversations is just hugely important. It's such a strategic part of the world that is moving forward at an extraordinary pace. So, there are lots of opportunities. So we're very, very eager to welcome you guys in December, but also to be more present in what you do in Africa, in your Smarter Mobility Africa discussions.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that, John. Another point I'll probably add is
Yeah.
that I think the CoMotion Global event is very timely this year, especially considering that South Africa is the host of G20.
Yes.
And just this weekend, actually, the city of Tshwane and the city of Johannesburg have hosted the U20, which the Urban 20, which
Yeah.
hosted a number of mayors and urban stakeholders from around the world, including Riyadh. And I've not unpacked what took place there yet. I've seen snippets, but I'm sure that some of that momentum created from U20 into Smarter Mobility Africa into G20 will then progress very nicely into what's being discussed and explored at CoMotion Global in December.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and the Saudis, by the way, take the U20 very seriously. At the last G20 in Riyadh, there was, very, very active track of the Urban 20. So I think that, they're eager, and that will be reflected also in CoMotion Global in December. So I think we'll have a lot of the U20 crowd there. So
Great. Thanks, John. I think
thanks, man.
that's it. Thanks for your time, and we're really looking forward to doing this.
Likewise. Yeah.